TII Item 451, December 15th, 2017, iOS 11.2.1, iOS 11.2.5 Beta 1, and an interview with Keith Ballinger.
Welcome to Today in iPhone.
I like it a lot.
Today in iPhone.
Hey, Google!
Oh, yeah.
My beautiful iPhone, which I never have out of my hand and that I do everything with and has become an extension of who I am.
Today's episode is brought to you by BarkBox. For a free extra month of BarkBox, visit barkbox.com/TII when you subscribe to a 6 or 12-month plan. Today's show is brought to you by Eero. For free overnight shipping to the US and Canada, visit eero.com and at checkout, select overnight shipping, then enter promo code TII to make it free. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and you are listening to the Today in iOS podcast. First up, I want to thank Matthew for sending in the artwork for today's show. Matthew wrote the following. Hi, Rob. Sorry it's taken me so long to get this to you. I was on vacation this summer in France and happened to swing by the Apple store to pick up a few electrical outlet attachments. Took this picture in Aix-en province, and I know I probably didn't pronounce that right, and added the TII branding and the city name with the built-in editing features of the photo app. Hope all is well, and a big thanks for all the work you do on the podcast. Regards, Matthew Hollingsworth. Well, thank you, Matthew, for sending in this. And folks, you can see the artwork in the free TI app via the bonus button for episode 451 or at instagram.com/todayinios, and also, of course, at facebook.com/todayinios. If you have some artwork and or music you have created on your iOS device that you would like to share with the show, please email to me at todayinios@gmail.com. Please make sure to include which app or apps you use to create said artwork and or music. All right, let's get into the news. From Apple, quote, iOS 11.2.1 fixes bugs, including an issue that could disable remote access to shared users of the Home app, unquote. On December 13th, Apple released iOS 11.2.1 to the masses. Should you update to it? Well, if you are on iOS 11.2 and you are that listener that uses HomeKit, if you are that person, then sure. Everyone else can wait a little bit. For 11.2.1, it fully patched the vulnerability for remote HomeKit users introduced in 11.2. To fix that at the time, Apple disabled remote access for shared users. In iOS 11.2.1, that remote access is reinstated. I've not seen anything else listed for what iOS 11.2.1 brings or fixes. So again, if you are not using HomeKit, then you can take your time updating. Apple also updated tvOS for the masses on the 13th of December, releasing tvOS 11.2.1. As with iOS update for 11.2.1, this is about fixing issues with HomeKit sharing, and that's about it. If you have auto update for tvOS, it may already be updated for you. And the chances of you using HomeKit for your Apple TV? Yeah, okay, we'll go with that. Sure, why not? If you don't have auto update on for tvOS, if you ever get around to it, you might want to do this one, but I wouldn't rush to do it. On the 13th, a couple hours after Apple released iOS 11.2.1 to the masses, Apple released 11.2.5 Beta 1 to the devs, and then on the 14th to the public beta testers. What happened to iOS 11.2.2 and 2.3 and 2.4? It's something we're not going to speak about out loud. I did love one blog I read that speculated that Apple skipped the other double dot number updates by accident. Yes, because they accidentally went from iOS 11.2.1 to 11.2.5. Yeah. So what is new with 11.2.5 Beta 1? Well, the official party line is bug fixes, optimizations, and security patches. Shocker. All that for a double dot update. Who would have thunk? On December 13th, Apple not only lost some double dot updates with iOS, they lost some with tvOS, which also jumped to tvOS 11 from 11.2.1 to tvOS 11.2.5 Beta 1. However, with watchOS, it seems Apple was not as careless, and it made, when the latest beta came out, watchOS was 4.2.2 Beta 1. Oh, wait, never mind. They skipped 4.2.1 and jumped right to 4.2.2. Very strange in how Apple is rolling out these betas per the numbering. Seems lots of behind-the-scenes alphas not making it out to the devs and the beta testers. Or maybe it was just a mistake on the numbering. Or not. And on the 14th, by the way, Apple then released public beta of tvOS 11.2.5. So yeah, that's out there now for more than just the devs. There were various reports earlier this week about a conflict between iOS 11.2 and Sprint's carrier settings update from around the same time. This caused Wi-Fi calling to not work for Sprint users. Well, Sprint fixed the issue and pushed out a new carrier update. If you are a Sprint customer, make sure you accept the latest Sprint carrier update, especially if you are running iOS 11.2 and using Wi-Fi calling. Again, this is a report of an issue that has been resolved if you do all the updates. A Reddit post has been causing a little stir this week when a user was claiming that the battery on his iPhone 6s was wearing down, that Apple was then throttling the CPU performance, but once they changed out to a new battery, performance jumped up. Or maybe, just maybe, they had some rogue items running in the background, and by removing the battery, it completely wiped out the issue for the RAM. And when they powered back on, what was causing the issue was gone, and that caused the jump in the CPU benchmarks. In the Google Plus community, Hayward Morgan said this, quote, "I can say that replacing the battery in my 5S, yes, I'm still rocking the 5S, did remedy my battery percentage dropping 30 or more % at a time. The issue has previously been blamed on iOS updates. I have not had the issue since changing my battery. I don't think it affected the performance one way or the other by changing out my battery," unquote. I have an iPhone 5S. I received it back from my son. Now he has my iPhone 7, old 7 Plus. And I ordered a new battery for it because it, too, is doing that massive drops in battery in a few seconds. I ran some CPU benchmarks before the replacement. Again, I'll have the replacement battery next week. And when I get the replacement, I'll do some after replacement CPU benchmarks. And here's what I did. I included these tests where I cleared out the RAM and then do the reset network settings before the battery replacement. So let's see if it affects things. But to start with, again, I think it's much more likely the reason for improved CPU benchmarks has to do with a rogue process running in the background that was cleared out when the RAM was cleared and when that power was fully removed from the unit. So I installed the Geekbench app on my iPhone 5S and I ran it with the power connected, and it gave a score of around an average of 1280 single core and 2210 for the multi-core. I then ran it with no power connected and had a score of 1285 single core and 2210 multi-core. Then I cleared the RAM and ran it again. By the way, to clear the RAM, press and hold the power button until you see the slider to turn it off. Then press and hold the home button. So you release the power button and then you press and hold the home button. Once it flashes back to the home screen, you have cleared the RAM. As I mentioned, I ran it again after the RAM was cleared with the power connected, and I had a score of 1285 single core and 2210 multi-core. And finally, I did a reset network settings and ran one more time with the power connected, and I had a score again right around 1285 for the single core and 2210 for the multi-core. In all those instances, I ran the test at least 3 times and took the average score. When I get a new battery, I will run these tests again and see how it goes. But at least for me, the scores seem pretty consistent whether power was in or power was out, or if the battery was way up or the battery was way down. So I don't expect when I change the battery out to see either the single core or the multi-core scores change. American Express just announced it plans to eliminate the signature requirement for purchases in the US and Canada starting in April. They joined Mastercard and Discovery, who have also previously announced this. This means for Apple Pay using one of these services, no more need for a signature. Quick side note here. Went and saw Star Wars tonight before recording this. Really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. My kids loved it. They say it was one of their favorite, 2 or 3 favorite, and I'd agree with that. I think it's one of the 2 or 3 best, definitely one of the 3 best Star Wars movies that I've seen. Of course, I'm biased. I love Star Wars, so I've been to every opening premiere night showing of Star Wars movies since Empire Strikes Back, and the kids have been to every one that's been released since they've been alive. But anyway, we were biased. That said, if you are a Star Wars fan, I think you're really going to enjoy this. And just think of this. There's one point in the movie where Luke goes to get a drink. Not a spoiler or anything, but when he goes to get that drink, just want you to think about this. I sure hope that was a teat. I want to thank BarkBox for sponsoring this episode. BarkBox is a service where once a month you get a box with 4 to 6 natural treats and super fun and cool toys built around a different theme for your dog. A recent theme for Spock that he received was the New York City theme. Then there was also the Jurassic Park theme, and then one of my favorites, the Good, the Bad, and the Pugly theme. One of the things we really like about BarkBox is each month you get a different group of items for your dog to try out, and when you find something that they love, you can go ahead and go to their store and buy it straight up. Like the best treats ever, the turkey and duck nuggets, which Spock is highly motivated to do what you tell him for said treat. He loves them, so we purchased a few bags, and a couple of which will be his Christmas present. The boxes are shipped to your door with a unique variety of toys and treats that you wouldn't find anywhere else. All the edible treats are made in the US and Canada. Your dog or dogs will have a great time during the unboxing. It's like 12 little Christmas mornings for your dog spread throughout the year. And when you do the unboxing, BarkBox will replace any items your dog doesn't like. It's all about your pup's happiness. There is free shipping within the continental US. And to get a free extra month of BarkBox, visit barkbox.com/TII when you subscribe to a 6 or 12-month plan. Again, go to barkbox.com/TII to get a free extra month when you subscribe to a 6 or 12-month plan. Spock would really, really like to thank the BarkBox folks for sponsoring our show, and your dog will really, really thank you for going to barkbox.com/TII. A new report is out about October smartphone sales. This is from Market Pulse. What they found in the top selling smartphones by model for global sales, Apple did the best. Shocker. iPhone 8 was number 1 with 4.6% of sales in October. The iPhone 8 Plus was second with 4%. Then a drop to third at 2.4% for Sammy's Galaxy Note 8. Then fourth was the Galaxy S8 Plus at 1.5%. Not far behind in fifth place was the iPhone 6. Yes, I read that right. The iPhone 6 in fifth place at 1.2%. And then the iPhone 7 also around 1.2%, as was the Vivo X20 and the Galaxy S8. Yes, just as many sales to the iPhone 6 in October as it was to Sammy's new Galaxy 8. Ouch. And I think it's pretty safe to say that when November's numbers finally come out, Apple will have done even better with the iPhone 10 topping the charts. I mentioned on the last episode that Apple seems to have made it already to equilibrium for the iPhone 10s, which was much faster than most people expected, and it would set off a debate on if it meant lower demand or greater supply, and starting to see that debate. Well, Mixpanel, which can't measure sales, but can measure devices using their apps or using apps that use their dev kit, that is, what they found was the iPhone 10 already was outpacing the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. The iPhone 10 is at an adoption rate of 4.76% versus the iPhone 8 Plus at 3.59% and the iPhone 8 at 2.78%. Mind you, this is just to measure usage of their apps by owners of those devices. It could be that iPhone 10 users like their devices more and are using apps more, skewing their numbers up. But in any case, for the argument that the iPhone 10 is at equilibrium has more to do with supply, well, this report would back that up.
Hey, Rob, this is Ted from St. Louis. Kind of curious, what is your iPhone 10 wearing at this time? Trying to find a different case. The one that I've had for several years just isn't cutting it anymore. I'd like to find a case that kind of makes the iPhone stand out a little bit as far as what it looks like and how it feels. The case I wear now that that I'm using. It's just what I've had for so long. So give us a few ideas what your iPhone 10 is wearing at this time, if you would. Thank you. Always enjoy your podcast. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Ted, thank you very much for your feedback. And this is a pretty easy one. Since I've had my iPhone 10, I've had one case for it, or at least one case that I have used, and that is the Apple Folio case. So it is the $99 case from Apple, the leather folio case. I like that. It allows me to keep my credit card, my driver's license, a little bit of cash in there with my iPhone. Whenever I run out the door, I'm always grabbing my phone anyway. So now I have my driver's license, I have my credit card with me. And I just like that. I like that for the functionality. I like the protection it supplies the screen when it's closed. So I am sporting the Apple Folio case on my iPhone 10. I've had a couple cases sent to me that I've tried, for a few minutes, put them on, but I didn't like the feels of them, so I'm not going to talk about them. So for me, at least, I'm probably going to stick with the Folio case. I'll continue to test other cases for the iPhone 7 Plus, or I should say my son will, and the 6 Plus, and the iPhone SE. But for me, personally, for the iPhone 10, I'm sticking with the leather folio case. Now, I may try other leather folio cases from other companies. Last year, I tried out the Nomad for my iPhone 7 Plus, that I really like the Nomad folio case. And if they make one for the iPhone 10, or they send me one for the iPhone 10, I'll probably sport that around for a while. And I'm sure there's some other ones, and don't tell a wife, but she's getting a leather folio case for her iPhone SE for Christmas. To the email bag we go. Hey, Rob, I used to enjoy watching Amazon Prime Video on my PlayStation 3, but now with Prime Video on Apple TV, I can now have all of my streaming content on one box. After watching an episode of Mr. Robot last night on Apple TV, I noticed that it also appears in I believe it is the Up Next area for the Apple TV. So it seems to be integrated with Apple TV app, unlike the Netflix app. I found that very cool and thought your listeners might as well. Regards, David from Michigan. Well, thank you, David, for that feedback. Back to the email bag. Hi, Rob. Question for voiceover users. I am learning to use voiceover out of necessity of a progressive blindness that is really affecting me the last couple of years. My question is about what type of earbuds do you use in public? I find it very true that your other senses take over, and I'm afraid of just normal earbuds obstructing my hearing of the outside world. When I'm in public with my wife, I don't always take my cane. Maybe I should, but sometimes you just don't want to mess with it. I have seen headphones that allow or even enhance the sounds of your environment, but they are expensive. Do any of you use anything specific set for this purpose? Thanks for the show, Rob, and thanks in advance for any help from the TII community. Regards, Patrick in Onaha. Now, Patrick, I will say this. This is where I would recommend Apple's earbuds. You can put one in, so you only have to have one in your ear, and you can have one out. So, and on top of that, they don't really block your hearing. So you still hear pretty much everything else. So that really just taking away too much from the environment around you. And again, like I mentioned, you can have just one in at any given time, still be able to talk, and have the other ear completely open. And then when that battery runs down, just swap for the other one. And then you take the one out of the left ear if the batteries run down and put it into the case to charge while you have the one in your right ear going along. So my recommendation for what you're looking to do here is Apple's AirPods. Now, if anyone else would like to call in or send in an email of suggestions for Patrick, give us a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOONDOG. Or shoot an email to todayinios@gmail.com. Back to the email bag. Hi, Rob. I'm blind and paralyzed, and I have an iPhone, and I use Hey Siri. I have a couple questions. Is there any way to answer your iPhone using Siri or have it automatically answer? When you're listening to music through the phone, how can I get Hey Siri to activate when listening to music it doesn't pick up my voice? Regards, David. Well, hi, David. Yes, although it's not via Siri, you can now in iOS 11 have the phone auto answer after X number of seconds. To do this, go to the Settings app, then General, then Accessibility, then Call Audio Routing, and then select Auto Answer for calls. So you turn on Auto Answer Calls. After you've turned that on, then you have an option to select how many seconds you want to wait before it auto answers. It is, of course, off by default. However, this has nothing to do with Siri. It just does exactly what it says. It auto answers every call. You can say, hey, Siri, all you want. When it's ringing, it's just going to ignore you. But again, you can do what you're looking for, which is to have it auto answer for you. That you have no say in the matter, as it will auto answer every call in the number of seconds that you defined once you've turned that on.
Hey Rob, this is Tony from Santa Clarita. There's a little hidden Easter egg in the Apple Store app. In the search engine, or search I should say, type in "let it snow." Walk the magic.
Tony, thanks for the voicemail message and the tip on that hidden Easter egg. Seems Apple was doing some shopping for the holidays and they picked themselves up Shazam to gift to themselves. Apple, while normally quiet about acquisitions, did have this to say. Quote, "We are thrilled that Shazam and its talented team will be joining Apple. Since the launch of the App Store, Shazam has consistently ranked as one of the most popular apps for iOS. Today, it's used by hundreds of millions of people around the world across multiple platforms. Apple Music and Shazam are a natural fit, sharing a passion for music discovery and delivering great music experience to our users. We have exciting plans in store, and we look forward to combining with Shazam upon approval of today's agreement," unquote. Shazam was already given special integration with Siri, where you can ask Siri, quote, "what song is playing," unquote, and it would use Shazam to identify the song playing in the background. There are a bunch of posts out there speculating Apple's plans and reasons for buying Shazam. I think the biggest reason is to keep Shazam from sending people to Spotify for a song that's recognized. Another big reason is because they could. I mean, it is a music service, and Apple has always had a strong music bend. And see Beats acquisition, see iTunes acquisition. It should be interesting to see if Apple is able to integrate Shazam even deeper into iOS and integration with Siri in the future. Interesting quotes out of an interview Phil Schiller, Apple's senior VP of marketing, had with the magazine T3. This is per removal of the home button. Phil said, quote, "At the time, at the beginning, it seemed almost impossible. Not just almost, it seemed impossible. And to pull off what feels impossible and make it possible. And not only that, but just something we love using is just a great achievement. Clearly, there was a point in the process where we had to commit to the fact that it would be a full top to bottom screen on the front with no home button, which means you're counting on Face ID working as we'd hoped and being as good as we'd hoped. That's an exciting moment. When you have that sort of, the old saying is, burn the boats, leave the past behind, and you commit. Knowing that the team was willing to make the gamble was a key point early enough in the process," unquote. That gamble might also explain why only one iPhone X this year, along with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. If they burned the boats and needed to be rescued, they still had the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus to come to the rescue. This, to me, again, comes back to the iPhone X being the iPhone 8 replacement, and that an iPhone X Plus is out there, and that will be the iPhone 8 Plus replacement come next year in the fall. A quick congratulations to Google, as Oreo, their latest version of Android, which is version 8 of Android, and it was launched in August. Well, for the 7-day period ending on December 11th, according to Google, it made it all the way up to 0.5% adoption. Again, congrats, Google. iOS, on the other hand, for iOS 11, launched a month after Oreo, according to Apple, is struggling to get over the 60% adoption rate as of the beginning of December, coming in as an installed on only 59% of all iOS devices. Cheese and crackers. At this rate, Android is likely going to hit 1% adoption rate before Apple hits 75% rate. And that just seems wrong. Again, which platform do you want to develop and test for? Just saying. I wanted to thank Eero for sponsoring the show. This is a product I absolutely love and allows me to get the fastest Wi-Fi at my house with the best coverage everywhere. Eero, E-E-R-O, makes a Wi-Fi mesh network for your home. I mentioned previously how fast Eero is for me. The speed really is incredible. Thank you, Eero. With the holidays, that means even more devices on your home network. And if you act quickly, you can have a home network from Eero that is ready to handle all those new devices. This is the second generation Eero unit, which added a third 5 gigahertz radio, and it is a mesh network just like at office buildings, but now for your home. I set up my main unit in my office, connected via Ethernet cable to my Google Fiber router, then went to the kitchen, plugged in the beacon unit to a standard wall outlet, set it up quickly, then set up one in our bedroom, which is as far away from my office as possible in our house. It was about 10 to 15 minutes to set it all up. It was really easy with an app for your iOS device that lets me monitor and lets you monitor all the Wi-Fi devices connected now or have been. We have 18 showing now and more coming at Christmas. Shh, don't tell the kids. Again, is your home network ready for this holiday season? With Eero, you only need to connect via hardwire to the base unit. The beacons, you just plug into a wall outlet, and they even have a nightlight. The Eero also has a new thread radio for lower power devices like my Ring doorbell and other Wi-Fi enabled IoT devices. If you go to eero.com and enter promo code TII, you will get free overnight shipping to the US and Canada. Again, go to eero.com and at checkout, select overnight shipping, then enter promo code TII to make it free and get your home network ready for the holidays. This is the best Wi-Fi I've ever tested or heard of, hands down. Thanks, Eero, for unleashing all my Apple products and a few new ones that the kids are getting this holiday season. I mentioned back in November that Microsoft had flown me out to New York and put me up in the city so I could attend the Microsoft Connect keynote and then interview some of the Microsoft team while I was there. The following is the first of the interviews from Microsoft Connect 2017. This one was recorded on Wednesday, November 15th, and is with Keith Ballinger from Microsoft. The interview runs about 29 and a half minutes long, and well, let's get into the interview. Here we go. Keith, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Can you introduce yourself and what you do to the audience?
So my name is Keith Ballinger. I'm the director of product for a new product that we announced today called Visual Studio App Center at Microsoft.
Now, can you explain what Visual Studio App Center is?
Sure. So App Center is a collection of services that makes building apps a lot easier. We offer CI and CD, the ability to send your app directly from your CI system into the App Store. We have thousands of real-world devices that we use for helping you test your application. We offer analytics, crash reporting, and push messaging services. And this is for iOS, obviously, but also for macOS, for Windows developers, and for Android developers. And even more so, I think one of the most important things is this works with Swift and React Native, Java, as well, of course, as C#.
So this is actually something the Swift developers in the audience can take advantage of.
Absolutely. We have a lot of Swift developers today already.
And this is live now. They can go get this.
Yep. Just go to appcenter.ms right now.
I want to talk a little about your background. We'll get into the technical stuff, but you've kind of come full circle. You were at Microsoft at one point in time, and now you were at Xamarin, and then Xamarin became Microsoft. So explain your route to how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. So I was a developer at Microsoft in the late 90s, and I was working on games, and then I became a PM at Microsoft, and I was there for quite a few years, worked on .NET and C#, loved building developer tools, spent a little bit of time actually in Windows Media Player working on our podcasting capabilities that we never shipped in Windows Media Player, but it's a lot of fun.
That became part of the Zune. The Zune team kind of grabbed the podcast.
Yeah, the Zune team grabbed it, and but I learned just a whole bunch about building applications for consumers through that experience as well. I'd learned a whole bunch about how to build things for developers. And then I left Microsoft because I wanted to do startups. And they caught the startup bug. Coworker of mine convinced me, hey, we got to go do this.
I looked at your LinkedIn. You were a few different places. You were packing bags quite often.
Oh, man, all the time. So we did a startup where we were trying to build essentially like a Chromebook before Chromebooks existed. So, you boot into this lightweight laptop and it would be a web browser and all your apps would be there. And we were a little too early. Plus, we had no idea what we were doing.
It doesn't pay to be first sometimes, does it?
No, I think it pays to be slightly second sometimes, just a little behind. Let other people learn for you sometimes, right?
Ask MySpace, or what was the one before that? Even Friendster, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was tons of social networks before Facebook, right? I did a bunch of these startups. One that kind of stuck in my mind a lot was called Ravid. We started with Android and iOS. It was a mobile-first startup where you could send video messages to your friends and family. We started around 2010 or so. Never really took off. We made a lot of mistakes. Again,
what happened to Ravid?
So with Ravid, ultimately the issue was we made the wrong bet on what people wanted. We thought people wanted an ultra-private way to send really long videos to each other from one device to another, from my phone to your phone. And so we went out of our way to make it extra private. There was no username. There was no kind of social feed or wall or any of those things. And we went really out of our way to make sure that if you wanted to, you could send a very, very long video. And in fact, at one point, someone told us, one of our users, hey, I recorded Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon on my TV, pointing my phone at the TV, and I sent it to my cousin, and they haven't received it yet.
Oh no!
It was literally a 2.5 hour video, but it worked. You could send these very long videos. It just turns out that's not what people wanted. People wanted, 10-second videos. They wanted animated
and
GIFs.
Public. And people put everything out there.
Yes, they wanted it to be able to post these things to Twitter and to Facebook and to share them and see people's comments on them. And we had just the completely wrong kind of orientation on what people wanted.
So other than the length and private or unprivate, you were pretty close.
Yeah, we were almost there, except for, not having the right product and not building it the right way and having no users and all those other things. It was a smashing success.
But technically it worked, and that's important.
Yes, it was a huge thing because when I left Microsoft, I had loved C# since I had worked on it. I wanted to experience all the rest of the developer world because I was also very jealous of everything else I saw going on around me. And so I learned, Ruby on Rails, and I learned Python. I learned, Clojure when it came along later, and obviously Objective-C at the time, and then Java for Android. And so I loved that whole kind of collection of things that I'd never used before in technologies, and kind of exposing myself to new ideas, interesting ideas that I just hadn't considered previously in my time at Microsoft. And it made me, I think, very empathetic to what developers were trying to do and to understanding that there are more than just users of, say, Windows. And that was very illuminating to me to do all of those startups. And ultimately, I ended up at Xamarin. So I knew...
How did you get to Xamarin?
So I knew Nat and Miguel because they had built Mono, which was an open source version of C#. We weren't the best of friends, but we were certainly acquainted with each other. And then I was living in Boston when they started Xamarin because my wife was going to law school there. And mutual friends introduced me to Nat, who was the CEO of Xamarin, and said, "Hey, you guys should talk." And we ended up kind of becoming friends, consulting. I would offer my opinion on how they were doing things and help out here and there as the days went on. And then probably 3 years into Xamarin's life, it had grown quite a bit. I had gone through a few more startups of varying levels of success. I was the chief architect at a YC company called Standard Treasury, where we were trying to build, a new kind of bank that was like a developer-friendly bank. The main way you'd interact with the bank would be through REST APIs, that kind of thing. And so we sold that to Silicon Valley Bank. And then I was going to do another startup.
So there was an exit on that one.
There was an exit on that one. Not all exits are created equal, of course. But, I think it was I think everybody was pretty happy with how that one ended. And it certainly improved Silicon.
Was your wife happy with how it ended?
Yeah, I think my wife was
because that's the ultimate goal, right?
My wife is an interesting person, and she's I think happiest when I am kind of pushing the boundaries in my career, because then I'm the happiest then. Okay. And so it was very funny. It was like for her, startups have never been about the money, because usually there's no money in startups, right? No. So it's good that me and her are aligned on that. The more interesting thing is that wait a second. You mean everyone doesn't get rich that works at a startup? I don't. That's not how it looks on Silicon Valley. I'm pretty sure everybody gets rich except me. I'm pretty sure that's what happens. No, it was. But yeah, that happened. I was going to do another startup, and then Nat, when me and him met for coffee, was like, "Keith, we've grown really large. I need to have a VP of product. Will you join Xamarin instead as the VP of product?" And I kind of hemmed and hawed about it for a couple weekends, and then I was like, "Well, why in the world am I saying no? I love mobile development. I love the iPhone. Xamarin was,
a startup.
It was a startup. So I love startups. Like there's nothing here that isn't in my wheelhouse. And I still hadn't, really built like all of the developer tools that I wanted to build in my life. And so I was like, yeah, I'm on board. And so then I was the VP of product at Xamarin until we were acquired by Microsoft.
And that brings you back full circle.
Yeah, it brings us back full circle.
Now, where are you working for? Are you down in the Bay or are you up?
Yeah, I live in San Francisco, actually. And so we had offices in Boston and San Francisco and Denmark and a few other places. And no one really moved unless they happened to have wanted to. There was no consolidation.
So you get to work for Microsoft again, but you have less rain.
Yes, exactly. It's funny, Seattle, it rains a whole lot, and people don't notice that, but it's raining. It's raining there right now, I'm sure.
It's a day that ends in Y.
So we got to Microsoft, and at Xamarin had started with this kind of C# for iOS product, but it extended beyond that, and so in the time I was there, we had something called Xamarin Test Cloud, which you could use to test on real devices. And you didn't have to build a Xamarin app. You could have any kind of app, and you could test them. We built something called Xamarin Insights, which is around crash reporting and analytics, same kind of thing. And when we got acquired by Microsoft had acquired the year before Hockey App, which was, how to get beta distribution.
So is this App Center pulled out of the Hockey App group?
Yeah, essentially. So the founder of Hockey App, Thomas, and his team had been iterating on Hockey App inside of Microsoft. They joined our team after the acquisition. And then me and Thomas were sitting down one day, and he drew on a piece of paper or something, and like a bunch of squares for a new product idea.
Don't say it's the back of a napkin.
It was almost the back of a napkin. It was probably like one of these like little yellow Post-it notes. So he drew all these squares, and because we had been talking about how I had wanted to combine Xamarin's Test Cloud product with its Insights product for a long time to build like one thing. And I always called it the dashboard. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have the ultimate like mobile developer dashboard with all of my tools. It looked
pretty slick.
They're very beautiful products, and not just beautiful, like very usable, very fast and snappy. And when I told Thomas about that, and then he thought about it, and he came back the next day with all these squares he had drawn, which was basically that functionality plus the functionality inside of Hockey App. Plus, there was a couple other teams at Microsoft, like the Code Push team and the VSTS team who had built some mobile CI. And he's like, you know what? I think we can do this dashboard thing. We can add all these other features, all these other services. And we can build like this new thing. It can be like a hub for developers that can, just really do everything. And I was sold, he was sold. So we just kind of went around convincing everybody else at Microsoft. Nat was completely on board. And so that became App Center ultimately, where we ported some code, we rewrote some code, we learned from what we had done in previous attempts, but we were very kind of adamant that we were going to build something that no matter what language you were writing it in, no matter what kind of platform you were pointing at, we were going to make it 5 minutes from the time you push your code to your source code repository till you've tested it and you've gotten it on people's machines. And then we're going to go further than that. We were going to make sure it had Hockey App's crash reporting ability, so you'd always know before anybody else that your app was having problems. We'd have beautiful analytics to make it really easy for you to understand things. Because I looked at that whole suite, and I was always thinking back to Ravid and everything I've been doing kind of in developer tools, and especially in mobile. I always think back to, okay, when I was doing this startup, what were all the mistakes I made? And what could I have done differently? And then what tools could I have had that made doing the different much easier? And when I look back, like, if I could have released the product more often, right? Because it was always for me like a very difficult thing to, build it on my phone, then go get other people's phones, update the provisioning profiles, plug them in by USB or whatever to my laptop, give it to them. That just took too much time, right? And it took too much time to submit to the App Store and wait for feedback that way. So I never learned as fast as everybody else that nobody wanted, or not enough people wanted, 2-hour videos, and that they wanted these public features. I could have experimented more if I could have released more often. And I never felt like I could release often because I didn't have the right model in my head and the right tools to make that possible.
And today was your launch day.
Today was our launch day. So we've been in preview. We've had a bunch of people using it in preview, and I think we've seen a lot of this kind of our effort borne fruit. And now I'm hoping that every mobile developer tries it out.
Right. And we've been here talking over half an hour, and your phone and your watch haven't blown up at all.
So my phone's buzzing so quickly. Okay. It's on silent. Okay. So you can. Okay. But mostly just people texting me saying, congratulations, that kind of thing.
But the fact that you're actually here and we're talking means it's going well.
Oh, it's going well. The engineering team is by far the best engineering team I've ever worked with. There's just insanely talented people who can build highly available, very fast services, and they're the real heroes.
And this is and we're on a Wednesday, which folks, you never roll out on Thursday and Friday. So remember that.
That's exactly true.
We've made that mistake where my day job, where they rolled out on a Friday afternoon one time. And that was the last time.
Yeah, no. So you're still at work until Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Fixing it. Yeah.
So good on the rod. Now, we talked a little bit before we started recording, a little bit on the accessibility side. Mm-hmm. What have you done with these tools as far as accessibility features?
Yeah, so I think one thing we're pretty proud of is that we wanted to make sure that if you were using App Center and you did have disabilities that required an accessible website, that you would have as good an experience as we could imagine. And so we've gone out of our way to make sure that if say for instance, if you're blind or just, nearsighted, that you can use things like screen readers and you can use things like high contrast mode, and that those work and that you still have a very productive experience inside of App Center. And we've gone further, we show charts and analytics. So we want to make sure the chart data makes sense to somebody who's visually impaired. And so we've spent a lot of time on those things, and I'm very proud of those things. The other thing we've always tried to do, though, is make sure you don't have one single way to access our product. So you can go to our web UI, and it is a beautiful web UI. It's a single page app. It's written in React. It's very fast and snappy and all those kinds of things. And that UI is very accessible. But at the same time, if you want, we have a command line interface that you can install from NPM, and it does everything that the UI does. Any action you want to take, you can take with the command line as well. And then further from that, so a little less about accessibility, but it's about being extensible and trying to meet developers where they are. Everything you can do in our UI, you can do with a REST API. And so it's been a rule from day one, you can't ship a feature that doesn't expose a public REST API. And that just makes all of these things easier in the end. You're no longer trying to retrofit something because you weren't thinking about all of the different ways developers would be using your product, and whether or not the developer had an impairment of some sort, or whether or not the developer just, really doesn't want to ever leave his terminal. These are all things that you want to go find where the developer is, and you want to meet him there to help them out.
No, a lot of times when you see tools like this and you see your center, you think, oh, this is for only people that are developing a lot of apps or multiple apps, or like an app house. But it seemed to be, when I was looking at it, it could be more for an individual app developer, the solopreneur. Right.
It's, being like an indie developer or small startups near to my heart. So again, I wanted to make sure that it would have worked for me in 2010. I think generally speaking, people have at least one version of their app, which is the public version. But oftentimes you're going to have a version for iOS and you're going to have a version for Android. At times you may want to manage your app suite differently and have versions for staging and versions for the people who are beta testing and things like that as well. But
there's always the version that you've got out there, and then the next version.
And then the next version.
Right. Hopefully there's a next version.
Yes.
And when Apple updates, obviously on iOS, there's the version you have to build for the betas.
Exactly. So we wanted to help with all of that. And so you don't have to be like an app factory, right? You don't have to be cranking out 20 and 30 and 40 different apps because you're working at some giant Fortune 5000 company or anything like that. That certainly works. We've made sure that, and we have a lot of experience using it internally at Microsoft and Microsoft teams internally using App Center. So we know you can have lots of different kinds of apps and very large teams of developers collaborating inside of App Center. But that's not really the requirement. If there's lots of solo developers with a single application targeting a single operating system also using App Center, and all of the features work just as well for those things as they would for a large team.
And costs for this?
It's essentially most everything is free. Analytics is free, crash reporting is free, beta distribution is free. You can do up to 4 hours a month of CI, also for free. After 4 hours, if you want unlimited CI, it's just $40 per kind of concurrent build. And so,
explain to the audience CI.
So CI means continuous integration. If you're a developer, you want the ability to have your code kind of compiled and verified as often as you can. And so the more often, if you can do that basically continuously, so every time you fix a bug, every time you add a feature, every time you change the font on a button, you want to make sure you haven't broken anything. And so continuous integration is a set of tools and techniques that let you do that build your app and test it. And then generally speaking, after that, we do something called continuous deployment, where you're going to send your app out somewhere to be seen by real people. Maybe it's just, the people you're developing the application with. Maybe it's testers.
Okay. Well, congratulations getting it launched. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about today's keynote. Were you there at the keynote today?
Yep, I was.
All right. So Xamarin team, they pull out the AI and they take a picture of an apple and it recognizes an apple.
I didn't see that keynote. I saw the one with Scott Guthrie.
Oh, see, so at one point they pull out, they were showing off the AI, and they pull out the app, and it shows an app. They put an apple, and it takes a picture, and it says apple. And then they pull out a pineapple. Why didn't they pull out a hot dog? Why was there not a hot dog? I mean, if you're going to go...
That sounds like a missed opportunity. I mean,
it was like you had one job to do.
Right. We should just tell them, listen, don't publish those videos. It makes no sense. Yeah. I missed all of this. I was doing things like this after the first keynote.
Yeah, no. So they came up there on the second one, and
they didn't do a hot dog.
No, they should have done.
Well, did it recognize the pineapple?
It did recognize the pineapple. It did recognize the apple.
Oh,
it was pretty impressive. I mean, it's just obviously. If you don't get the joke by now, we're talking Silicon Valley, and there was an app in there, and AI would recognize food, and it would only recognize hot dog or not hot dog.
Yeah. Just not hot dog.
But this one recognized apple, pineapple, like their app was supposed to.
They really, and we all watch Silicon Valley. At least everybody in the San Francisco office is definitely watching Silicon Valley, because we're always talking about it after each episode.
Oh yeah, I know they watched it. They had to have said, we can actually do that.
Hopefully, using AI to recognize a hot dog is no longer considered the intellectual property of some media company like HBO.
Oh, well, maybe that might have been it. Maybe it would have been. HBO lawyers are brutal. I had to deal with them. They're tough.
Yeah,
they're a tough.
Maybe
bunch.
that's it. Maybe the Microsoft legal team's afraid of the HBO legal team.
Okay. Well, it did recognize apple and pineapple, but it was very cool. Now, I sometimes I ask what's in your pocket to see what kind of, but I don't have to, because I see what's on your wrist. So I know you're an iPhone user.
Yeah, I got my Apple Watch.
You got the red dot. So we're both red dotters. You were bragging. So. What did you do with? Tell us what you did.
Yeah. I love this thing so much. What's funny is I actually was in. I went to Singapore for a conference and gave a talk. And while I was in Singapore, the watch became available for sales there. And I thought, oh, cool, I'll just buy it in Singapore. And I went and bought it. And the salesperson was confused by my questions. And so they told me it was cellular, but it wasn't cellular. And so then I returned it, and I was super disappointed. And I get back to California, but then I go to the Apple store there, and I get one. It's cellular. So I drive down to Pacifica, which is south of San Francisco, take my surfboard out onto the ocean, and I make a phone call. I call my wife. I'm like, hey, guess what I'm calling you from? And of course, she's like, shh, what? I can't hear you. And I'm like, I'm in the ocean.
Yeah, you noticed when Apple did the demo, she was on a lake, on a paddleboard.
Yeah, she's paddleboarding on a lake.
On a lake. It wasn't the ocean, it was a lake.
But it works on the ocean too, while surfing. You can definitely call people up. What I have to figure out now is how to keep my ear pods in my ear while I'm out on the surfing.
That's risky.
If I could get them to not pop out, then I could talk to people the whole time.
What you need to get is a Bluetooth headset, Aftershock. The bone inducting ones are good,
and they'll stick to your head really well.
They don't go in your ear; they just go right on your cheek. So they're bone inducting, and they're wireless, and they work with the Apple Watch.
Oh man, that's what I need. Because I'm not a very good surfer, and so I spend a lot of time.
They're not going to fall off. They won't. They come around the ear, so they're not going to fall off. That's the problem. Yeah, I wouldn't go out in the water with the AirPods.
Yeah, and those are waterproof.
They're not waterproof, but you can't go for a dunk, so don't fall off your board.
Well, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible surfer. I want to fall off before.
Yeah, so then you're going to have to get some waterproof ones.
So if anybody's listening, I need wireless headphones that work with the Apple Watch that are not going to fall off my face and are waterproof.
There's definitely something out there. We'll
there has to be. This is what I need.
We'll find out. We'll email you. Now, favorite app? I always like to ask. Or apps, if you can't.
My favorite app right this second, ooh man, there's so many to decide between.
It's going to be on your home screen. Might even be in your dock.
HeartStone.
Which one?
HeartStone.
HeartStone?
It's a strategy card game like Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
That Blizzard makes. Mm-hmm. It's the only video game I really play. I haven't played games in years, except I have it on my phone. I play it.
And you used to be a developer of games.
Yeah. Well, that kind of beat it out of me because when I was in the games division at Microsoft, I had to spend all of my time actually playing games because people would they'd want your office mates would want you to test their game out, right? And we were doing a lot of matchmaking services at the time. So when there would be lulls, they'd be like, hey, you should hop on and play with our customers so they have a good experience. So I ended up playing like tons and tons and tons of games. And I just never played any after that until HeartStone. Okay. I just love it. It's great. Works. And it's I think it's written in Unity. I'm not really sure, but it's definitely on my iPhone and the app I open up the most next to, the phone and things like that.
We'll have a link in the show notes.
Question for you. When you think about development and testing and things like that, I'm really curious in what people ask you and all these things. I'm really curious how people feel about distributing builds of their apps, to others, right? Like, do people still feel like it's a pain?
I think the biggest thing I hear is trepidation. They're afraid when they're distributing, did I get it right? Oh, what's going to happen when I release this out?
Gotcha.
I think when I've talked to devs, it's more fear to release the new version. Yeah, unless they're fixing a bug from the vast version, which is what caused them to have the fear to start with. Right. So unless they're releasing a bug fix, it's a brand new version, like a .1 or a not a dot update. Then they're concerned. Double dot updates, not so much because they're fixing the single dot or the dot.
Yeah.
But I think when I've talked with devs, what I hear is, oh, I'm gonna release this. Hey, Rob, cross your fingers. This is going out.
Gotcha. And then you think it's because they think they've introduced a new bug, or because maybe you're on a new version of the iOS that they haven't tested as much on? Or
I think it's because they don't feel it's been tested enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah, people will send me. They'll say, hey, go on test flight, and I'll send you the version. Can you take a look at this and tell me what you think? Now I'm going to get like 20 times more requests for that, but because I don't usually talk about saying I'll do it, but people send me that, and I'll take a look and I'll try to test it.
And do you find bugs?
Sometimes, yeah. I found a couple.
How do you tell them about the bugs?
I'm an engineer by trade, so bluntly.
I mean, are you taking screenshots of it, or are you just kind of
if I can take a screenshot, absolutely.
Like, how do you describe how you got there? Do you say, oh, I pushed on this and I pushed on this?
Yeah, I'll say, I went to this dash this, and I did this, and then it crashed, and
Gotcha.
and then I restarted everything, and I made sure I didn't have any other apps open, and I redid it, and it was fine. And then the second time I relaunched it, it crashed when I had mail open or something.
Gotcha.
So it just depends on the situation. I'm trying, but normally, I'll take a screenshot if it's that, unless it's a crash, and then I just
then you can.
Here's how I got to it.
Yeah, this is a thing I tackle a lot, and we've made it a lot better or a lot easier for you to build your app. We made it a lot easier for you to deploy your app to beta testers or to the stores. We have this real world device cloud where you can do testing, but you have to write the test. The thing that we kind of need to do next is, once I've got my app on your phone and you're testing it for me, you're a beta tester, how can I get better feedback from you, right? How can I automate that process? How can I see exactly which steps you took that led to that specific crash? And that's like an area that I really want to kind of dive deep next.
What I've done recently is I hit the record on the screen. Now with iOS 11, I can record.
Yeah, of course.
So, because I do the testing when we have it internally, our apps, I'll do that. I'll record how I got to it. So that's something new since iOS 11.
Yeah. And there's been services in the past that would do these kind of video or photos with the crash reports, but they never quite seem to take off or be very useful. So, and
when you had to connect it, and then you had to film it with QuickTime on the computer, and I had to do that, and then it's like, well, which one is causing the crash? Is it the fact that I'm connected to the computer?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
But no, so that's the other thing that helps. Again, if you can make people feel less trepidation, and I love, especially for Android, I feel really bad for the Android developers, because
they have a lot more to tackle. There's way more versions. I mean, this is going back to Ravid, when we would test on new Android versions, because there was no test cloud back then, we would go to the store, right? We'd go to the mall and to the kiosk in the middle, and my co-founder would distract the people, and then I would go install our app on the various Android phones and test them out. We didn't really have to do that as much with iOS, because especially back then there was only like 2 or 3 versions or 2 or 3 models that would in existence. So we just owned them. But even then there were hundreds of different types of Android devices, and so we were always just doing the old kiosk testing, as we called it, to find bugs.
Yeah, and I love when in the keynote they're showing today all the different Android devices that are out there that you can then test it on. Because the company I work for, we have both an iOS and an Android version of our apps, and they tell me they spend 5 times, 10 times more time on the Android for debug and issues and support tickets than they do for the iOS side.
It's just because it's so heterogeneous, and there's so many different versions, there's so many different models.
Yeah, we get people mad. They'll go, this person's got this off-brand version running 4 versions ago of Android, and my app's crashing, and you better fix it. Yeah.
And you're like, you want to. I mean, and when someone's angry because my software doesn't work, I feel so bad. I want to help them. I want to fix it. But sometimes it can be an overwhelming task, right? There can just be too many variables there that I can't control, including whatever kind of hardware you happen to be using.
Joke on my show, because I give Android a dig here and there, and it was like iOS was at 50% adoption on iOS 11, and Android was at 0.2 on the latest version.
Yeah, it's very small uptake. Yeah. You're always targeting several versions back with Android, whereas with iOS, you're generally asking yourself, well, do I really need to even target the major version before? I guess, maybe.
But not 2 before.
Yeah, but not 2. Oh, no, never 2, right? No. And so even now, I think there are probably developers listening to this asking themselves, do I need to support iOS 10? Maybe I just do 11. Maybe everybody will catch up by the time I'm done writing the code. Yeah. And that's like a reasonable kind of way to think.
It's not, no one's going to get fired for thinking that way.
Yeah, no, not in the iOS world. So it's a much more magical kind of development experience for sure.
How can people get a hold of you or follow? Is there any way online that you...
I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is KeithBA, so Keith, B as in boy, A as in apple. Feel free to follow me or DM me, and it's a great way to see what I'm up to and what the App Center team is up to. And of course, you can find App Center at appcenter.ms.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been a great time.
Thanks again to Keith for coming on the show. The app he mentioned was HeartStone from Blizzard. And if anyone has any good Bluetooth headsets that are waterproof and work with your Apple Watch and can handle the ocean, let us know. Give us a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-Moondog. Or shoot an email to todayinios@gmail.com. And if you want to follow Keith on Twitter, his Twitter again is @KeithBA. And you can find out more about the products we were talking about, App Center, at appcenter.ms. Where is Santa?
The North Pole. I can see his house from the cloud.
Where is Santa?
The North Pole, of course. Except when he's at his beach house.
Where is Santa?
In your heart. And at the North Pole. Mostly at the North Pole.
Next episode, episode 452, should be out Monday morning, either early or Tuesday morning early, one of the two. And after that, the next episode will be right before the end of the month. So actually, I'm going to do one before the new year. For that episode, before the new year, I would love to hear from you what some of your favorite holiday gifts, accessory gifts, were for your iOS devices, your anything to do with iOS or iPhones or iPads. What is something that you got for the holiday season that you really liked, or something you got that is just completely worthless? Let me know. Give me a call, 206-666-6364. That's 206-Moondog. Or shoot an email to todayinios@gmail.com. That end of the year, end of December episode, I'm going to be talking about what people received. And then also, let us know what apps you hear about at family get-togethers over the holidays. That's one of the best places to hear about new apps from relatives. So if you hear a good app, give us a call or shoot us an email. Let us know about that. And of course, let us know about the good and bad accessories that you received this holiday season. Today's show was again brought to you by Eero, which is by far the fastest and best Wi-Fi I've ever tested. If you go to eero.com and enter promo code TII, you will get free overnight shipping to the US and Canada. Again, go to eero.com And at checkout, select overnight shipping, then enter promo code TII to make it free. Make sure your home network is ready for all the new Wi-Fi devices this holiday season. Don't forget to check out our moderated Google Plus community by going to todayinios.com/community. Quick reminder, if you're an app dev or an iBook author, email me if you want your app or iBook featured in the promo giveaway segment for free. We just need the 5 promo codes or more to give away. Simply email me at todayinios@gmail.com. Please include a 60-second or less audio review of your app or iBook indicating you are the dev or author. Also, when you send in promo codes, please make sure to let me know when they expire. Thanks again to BarkBox for sponsoring this episode. To get a free extra month of BarkBox, visit barkbox.com/TII when you subscribe to a 6 or 12-month plan. Again, barkbox.com/TII to get a free extra month when you subscribe to a 6 or 12-month plan. Finally, check out the TII app, which is free to you. Search for TII in the iTunes App Store. It is the best way to consume the show and to get push notifications each time a new episode is released. And of course, it is fully voiceover friendly. Until the next time, I'm your host, Rob, reminding you to phone different. This show is hosted on Libsyn.com and part of the Wizard Media Network. If you are looking for hosting, go to Libsyn.com. That's Libsyn.com for hosting for your podcast and for creation of your own smartphone app. The Today in iOS podcast can also be found on the free Stitcher radio app. Just search for TII.